Welcome back to the Deep Drive. This is episode 4 with Ahan Runta and Max Goldstein. It is August now, which is right in between the trade deadline and when things start to get spicy in the division races. It's the best time of the regular season. So, Max, hope you're ready. We have a jam packed episode. How are we doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I mean, on MLB trade deadline and the WNBA trade deadline being a few days apart means it's a busy time for me. My Seattle Storm just traded for Brittany Sykes. For those of you who are WNBA fans, you know that means I'm excited. But I also have my own team to talk about in MLB, and we have some L's that we could potentially be taking soon. And I think that's a good place to start. Max, you've claimed for a little bit that the Yankees are very good, and after the trade deadline, or I think it was right before the trade deadline, you famously said in our Discord that the Yankees are better than your Detroit Tigers. We have the tweet up here right now. So it's been a few games, and a few games is nowhere near a good sample to take L's early or take W's. So I'm not asking you to do either, but let's talk about the Yankees who added um, basically every great reliever there was on the market. Um, Talk about the Yankees trade deadline and how much it improves them, and whether you think these last few games for them, where they can't seem to run into a win and they look just about as good as the Rockies and White Sox. Tell me how you're interpreting these few games.
Yeah, so it's obviously been a rough stretch for the Yankees because did they got swept by the Marlins? Did
Yeah.
they win one of those games?
No, they did not. I can confirm they
Mm.
did not.
They got swept by the Marlins, which that was the Yankees were favored, I think, in all those games. So that's definitely disappointing for them. But you can't read into one series, and the Yankees they're also without like an MVP, Aaron Judge, right now. So even without Aaron Judge, I would argue they still have a strong offense with Ben Rice, Trent Grisham, Stanton, Jazz Chisholm. I mean, they traded for Austin Slater, who's good against lefties. They also got Ahmed Rosario. They have Bellinger. They traded for McMahon, like Austin Well. Like their offense, I think their offense is when healthy I think their offense is top three in baseball. I mean, right now it's not healthy. I still think it's a good offense. And like you said, they traded for a lot of relievers. They traded for Jake Bird, David Bednar, Camilo Duvall. Like they had a when their bullpen was healthy before, it was like fine, and now their bullpen's really good. And they have Max Fried, who's an ace, and Carlos Rodon's probably like a number two guy. And then between like Cam Schlittler, Luis Heel, and Will Warren, like the rotation's good too. I feel like the Yankees, I think maybe their defense, the Yankees defensively aren't great, but like I think they have a great offense when Judge is healthy, a really good starting rotation, and a really good bullpen. So I don't understand why you, other than maybe because you're a Red Sox fan, I don't get the hate that you have towards this Yankees roster.
I mean, so all jokes aside, I do think obviously I don't care what the result is. If the Yankees were winning every single game, I would say relax. It doesn't really matter. It's just a few games. And the Yankees are losing every game right now. And I'm also here to say relax. It doesn't really matter. It's only been a few games. I really like the David Bednar move for them in terms of like upgrading like what they had. And they basically gave up nothing. And they got a reliever who's actually like last year, Bednar was struggling a lot. And people forget like how good he can be. And this year, he's actually having arguably his best season. At the deadline, he had 112 pitching plus, which is well above league average. And axiomatically, a 2.37 skill interactive ERA, which is an ERA estimator this year, and those are career bests, right? So David Bednar, really good. And I also happen to be a really big Camilo Doval fan. They also traded for Jake Bird, but now he's in AAA, but that's another story. I think where we disagree on the Yankees is my stance that the bottom of the lineup is not as good as many advertise. I think I stand by that. And obviously, it's going to be magnified when Judge is out, which is why I'm not using these last few games to make my point. I'm making the last couple of years mostly my point, right? Like, I really like the top of the lineup. I think Stanton proved last year that he's completely fine. He's not a hole in the lineup as many Yankees fans like to advertise in the past. The playoffs, he was awesome. They lost Soto, but I mean, Ben Rice is a really, really good hitter. But I think the bottom of that lineup is not as good as maybe we're advertising. I don't think Anthony Volpe's Linsanity run is sustainable. Maybe he's figured something out. Maybe we'll look into that more in the coming days if it continues. But I think this bottom of the lineup is not great, and I disagree that the starting rotation is good. I mean, Max Fried, he's been great, but like there have been games where he hasn't gotten like any whiffs. So I'm not fully sold on him. I have never once thought that Will Warren was someone you could blindly trust in a postseason start. Clark Schmidt is hurt, Garrett Cole is hurt, and we know this obviously. And Luis Gil, like, what's the guarantee that he's going to be able to locate? You know, we got Austin R in the chat. Shout out to him. He's an active Discord member as well. And he's pointing out that Luis Gil can't locate anything right now. And yes, he has time to figure it out. It's only been a little bit. He just got back, but I don't see the guarantee there. And then lastly, like obviously they upgraded, like they were the team that upgraded the most in the bullpen. Ironically, the guy that they had at the start of the season, Devin Williams, was the guy who blew it last night. But still, right, with David Bednar, Camilo Doval, even Devin Williams, like they should feel really good about having leads late in games. But at the same time, like I brought this up before that the bullpen matters to me, I think, a little less than it matters to you. And we could agree to disagree on that right now. But bullpen guys, they get important whiffs in the postseason, yes, but they're not going to give you 2 to 3 innings when you need it. And in the past, like teams have won the World Series without good bullpens, but they don't win the World Series without good starters. And other than Fried, and even if you assume you get the best version of Fried, like I don't trust this Yankees rotation at all. So I think we still see a disconnect on the Yankees. But yes, the truth about them is probably somewhere between your claim that they're the best team in the American League and what they've been showing the last few games, which I've just enjoyed as a Yankees hater. But of course, that's not really them when they're healthy. So it might just have to be a wait and see game. And at the end of the season, you know, when we're on our final episode of the podcast, the Yankees are a second round exit. Like none of this will matter anyway. So we could just wait till that inevitable point anyway. But I mean, that brings me to my next point, which is I might have an L to take as well. And I'm not going to hide from the fact that on episode 1 of this podcast, I spent half the episode talking about how the Red Sox are definitely not contenders this year and they should trade Jarren Duran and they should have obviously not traded Devers, et cetera, et cetera. And the front office is basically retooling this organization incorrectly ever since they fired Chaim Bloom last year. I stand by some of the statements I made, but of course, like the Red Sox continue winning. They continue getting the job done against every team they should beat, but also they just swept the Houston Astros in a series that I went in thinking that maybe the Astros can sweep the Red Sox at Fenway, and that'll prove my point that the Red Sox might miss the playoffs, and instead it's the other way. So I'm ready to take my L early that the Red Sox are a good baseball team, and maybe I doubted just how good Alex Cora can be at managing a pen that I thought wasn't very good with the injuries they've had. And I still think they're not a tier 1 contender, obviously, because they have question marks in the rotation. They have bullpen injuries, but also the bottom of the lineup can be inconsistent. And we'll find out in the playoffs in a short postseason run if this lineup can continue hitting the timely home runs, continue the high hitting with risk that they have, even without Devers. And I still claim that the truth about them is somewhere between what we've seen of them this past month, and what I said earlier. But yes, I'm willing to take my L early. Team's probably making the playoffs. If you liked my bet on them to miss the playoffs at plus money, you're sure going to love them at plus 300. So, yeah, the Red Sox are good, and I'm sorry for doubting them. But also, if you want to hear more, a little bit more of an in-depth version of what I personally feel about the winners and losers of this trade deadline, and spoiler alert, the Red Sox are mentioned here, you can check out our long-form video on the Ball Institute YouTube channel, which went up today. where I talk 2 winners and 2 losers of the trade deadline team edition. So you can see which 2 teams I thought won the trade deadline, which 2 teams I thought lost the trade deadline. And I go into those teams in depth in that video. And today we're going to focus on specific trades, specific players that both of us either like or dislike, trades that we like or dislike, and we'll get into all of that today. But I think it's time to get into our first mini game of the day. It's only right that we start with a different kind of trivia game before we get into all the trade festivity talk. Max, I have a game for you. We're going to play Who Doesn't Belong, 2025 MLB edition. So the way this works is I give you a trio of either teams or players. I give you a trio, and 2 of them fall in a certain category, and one of those doesn't belong. You have to tell me which one doesn't belong, levels 1 to 5, level 1 being the easiest category, level 5 being the hardest category. For levels 1 to 4, you don't have to tell me what the reasoning is, why it doesn't belong, what the category is. You just have to tell me who doesn't belong. But for level 5 to win the game, you have to tell me who doesn't belong and why they don't belong. So level 1, the 3 names, Trent Grisham, Kyle Stowers, and Jose Caballero. Who doesn't belong? And remember, level 1 is the easiest, so don't overthink it.
Jose Caballero.
All right, Max, you lost on level 1.
I thought you were doing 2 left-handed hitters and then 1 righty.
That's fair. I will give you all 5 levels, and you can decide to grade this.
Was it like
this
2
entire
Yankees?
Game? Yeah, so this entire game may be under review. So this is a test run of this game. So level 1 was supposed to be the Yankees. Like level 1 is supposed to be the easiest. So Kyle Stowers doesn't belong because he's not a Yankee. But I will give you all 5 levels anyway. This is a test run anyway, but you could play this entire game under review. Level 2. Let's try level 2. Which of these 3 teams doesn't belong? The Blue Jays, the Tigers, and the Rangers. Again, it's level 2, so that should give you a hint on how difficult the category is.
Well, I don't feel so good after failing level 1. I guess I'll say the Rangers.
Nice. You have passed level 2, which feels weird to say because you didn't pass level 1. But the Blue Jays and the Tigers both lead their division. The Rangers are currently not leading their division. Level 3, now we're warming up just a little bit. Ramon Laureano, Tommy Pham, and Josh Naylor. Which name does not belong? And it's 2025 edition, so it's specific to this season.
I'm going to say Tommy Pham.
Nice. Tommy Pham does not belong. He is the only guy on that list who was not traded this season. Tommy Pham shot out number 7 among all qualified hitters in Major League Baseball since his eye doctor fixed his prescription. Still did not get traded. It's going to have to waste his 837 season on the Pirates. That's level 3. Level 4, now we're getting spicy. Now you're going to have to dig deep in the bag. Which of these names does not belong? Luis Robert Jr., Spencer Strider, and Aaron Judge.
I'm going to say Aaron Judge.
So Aaron Judge does belong. The category was players who wear jersey number 99. Luis Robert wears 88. Spencer Strider and Aaron Judge both wear 99. Level 4 is supposed to be difficult. And level 5, we have to give it a shot because you're the kind to get this one right. Which of these 3 names does not belong? Luis Torrens, Liam Hendriks, and Kike Hernandez.
I'm going to say Liam Hendriks.
So Liam Hendriks does belong, and the category was players who have pitched more than 1 inning this season. Kike Hernandez has. Liam Hendriks has, despite his injury struggles. Luis Torrens has only pitched 1 inning this season. That was nearly impossible, but hey, you got levels 2 and 3. That's a start. I think on that note, it's time to, speaking of trade festivities, it's time to talk about the trade deadline, which is now past us. I want to talk specific moves, right? So we already talked about a little bit about the Yankees. basically dominating the trade deadline reliever market. I think it's right. We go into a little bit more detail on some of these pitchers. Jake Bird actually was sent down to AAA today after 2 bad outings. Is this an overreaction?
I think it is definitely an overreaction. I don't really understand. Like the Yankees gave away, I think it was 2 of their top 30 prospects for Jake Bird. So like they like him, they traded for him. I just don't get like pitchers are gonna have relievers have bad outings. Like that's not unusual. And like I'm always preaching that like kind of like how you performed in the past, like that can maybe inform like our guess of how the pitcher will do in the future. But like really the Yankees, they only need to worry about how will Jake Bird do tomorrow. I guess if they really think he's an implode again, then I understand why they'd send him down. But he's been really good this year. Like his pitching plus is actually better than David Bednar. His is 113. And then my version of that stat, expected pitching plus, which actually accounts for the ballparks, is 116. So he's above average by both of those stats. His strikeout rate's above average. And I have like a predictive walk rate, and it's his is like around average. Even his actual walk rate, I think, is like above 10%. But I think he might have actually intentionally walked a batter, which those little things like that, especially for a reliever, can actually. He's intentionally walked 4 batters this year. So, so if you remove those intentional walks, his walk rate, like, I'm not going to do the math right now, but like, that's impacting his walk rate by a lot. Some of those, maybe it was like a 3 ball count and then they just decided, oh, we're going to put him on, but maybe they weren't all that like that. And he also, he gets ground balls at above average rate. So like, this is someone that grades out well. Like he's a good reliever. Like actually, like it hasn't been updated. I think it doesn't account for yesterday, but like he's actually been the Yankees. He's the Yankees' best reliever according to my predictive weighted on base average. So like I don't know why the Yankees are setting him down because I think it's safe to say he's good. So I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean the Yankees, they have a slew of bullpen arms that could kind of do a lot of things that Aaron Boone wants. I was very surprised that he was sent down to AAA. Like I didn't like. Yes, I was following the Yankees games, but I did not even think that was a possibility just because of they just traded for him. And I noticed because of the fact that he got demoted, I noticed that he had 2 bad outings, and I find that interesting. But speaking of pitchers, I think we got to talk about another team where pitchers were on the move. It's the Minnesota Twins. So they traded a lot of pitchers. They traded for a pitcher and they traded a lot of pitchers away. Um, this Twins bullpen had a lot of valuable pieces. I specifically like a certain pitcher they moved to another team, and you specifically like a pitcher who they received in a deal for a reliever. So I'll let you go first. Talk about one of the Twins pitcher moves that you like.
Yeah, before I say that, like I like I like track like I have a like measurements of like how good is a bullpen going to be the rest of the year, and like before the trade deadline, the Twins, their bullpen was like you could argue was the best in baseball, and they traded away Joan Duran, Griffin Jacks, Lewis Varland, so like now their bullpen's like the worst, but they did get some valuable things in return. I like Mick Abel. He was in the Duran deal. His stuff, like he throws hard. He used to be a top 100 prospect. He probably still should have been. I don't know why. On Fangraphs, it looked like they dropped him out of the top 100, but his stuff is good. It didn't translate into swings and misses, but or strikeouts. But he only pitched like I don't even know if he pitched 30 innings in the majors. So that's not enough for us to say, oh, he's not going to perform or he's capable of striking guys out and getting more swings and misses. So I feel like the Twins, they probably can turn him into like a good starter, but right now I think he's in the minors. So I
Yeah.
know you want to talk about Taj Bradley. So
Yeah, I mean, if you are a member of our Discord, and if you aren't, you should be. It's still, as of this episode, it's still currently free. If you join the Discord, we talk baseball, whether or not we're betting on it. And I've been a Taj Bradley fan since the beginning of his career a couple years ago, and you'd think it's been forever. Especially you see the fact that the Rays traded him away to the Twins. You look at the Rays' history of trades, and you're like, the Rays win a lot of their trades, especially pitchers. And you look at the couple of them that haven't turned out so great for them. Sometimes they do involve the Twins. So this is an intriguing one to me. At first, I was like, what do the Rays know? Because I think Taj Bradley is a good pitcher. And the results haven't been great the first few years of his career. Or they haven't been ideal the first few years of his career. But this is a 24-year-old under team control with good stuff. And specifically, last year in 2024, there were 10 pitchers. Um, there were 10 pitchers with 100 plus innings pitched as a starter, with a skill interactive ERA under 4, and a stuff plus over 108. So this list had names like Dylan Cease, Paul Skeens, Tariq Skubal on it, and Taj Bradley was one of the names on that list. Now his stuff plus is down to 100 this year, but he has traded the high K rate for a little bit of contact pitching and giving up barrels. So he's kept the contact rate. He's kept the hard hit rate much lower this year, but he sacrificed some Ks for it. I'm not sure what the Twins exactly plan on doing with him usage wise, because he has multiple pitches that I consider very good stuff wise, and his fielding independent pitching has been decent over the last couple of years, despite his ERA not being so decent. So I feel like the Twins can make something out of it, just like they did with Joe Ryan, who was very raw when he entered the Twins organization. And I feel like Taj Bradley still has ace potential. And at age 24, there's still plenty of time for them to do it. They're not competing for anything this year. He's spending, at least right now in AAA, he might spend the rest of the season in AAA, maybe not. But regardless, I'm buying the dip on Bradley in 2026. And if you're in a fantasy league with me, I hope you're not listening to this. Otherwise, buy in on Taj Bradley. I love him for 2026. I want to talk more about the Twins and one of the moves that was made with pitching. Louis Varland going out. Like you said, they're emptying out this bullpen. Louis Varland going out to the Toronto Blue Jays. That's another move that I briefly mentioned on our long form video this morning. Louis Varland, 117 pitching plus with a stuff plus of over 110 on his four-seamer, his sinker, and his knuckle curve this year. He's a former starting pitcher, but he's been great as a reliever. I don't know exactly what the Blue Jays intend on doing with him, but the Blue Jays are contending this year, and we'll talk more about the level to which they are contending. They took a kind of a passive-aggressive approach to the trade deadline, and one of the moves they made was Louis Varland. I really like that move for them because, like we said on the podcast last week, they need high ceiling pitching, and this is exactly the kind of dart throw that we like out of the Blue Jays. If they're going to get multiple innings out of someone out of the pen in the playoffs, this is a guy that can do it. So I really like Louis Varland for that. Everyone's talking about the Shane Bieber move, which obviously, like, that's like a free dart throw that they threw. There's some upside there, but I would argue that the Louis Varland payout could be much more fruitful even than the Shane Bieber trade. So I really like Louis Varland for the Blue Jays. And then brings us to our next move is the polarizing, especially now that he's with a team where the fans want to be polarizing, Harrison Bader. And I'm not saying this because he homered last night. You can check my tweet history. I said this when the trade was made. Harrison Bader, despite the fact that he's probably due for some regression on his batted ball events, Harrison Bader is a good baseball player. And I don't know, if you're a Philly fan, I don't know what logic you could possibly using to tell me that Harrison Bader is just going to be a platoon guy with Max Kepler, or that he's another Austin Hayes. You need to seek reality, find some spiritual guidance. These are not good parallels. This season, Harrison Bader at the deadline, when he was traded, had 117 WRC plus with elite defense. He's a positive defender by StatCast every single season. Now he has better lineup protection, obviously being in that powerful Philly lineup. They can use him as a pinch hitter against lefty relievers. And honestly, I think he's an everyday player, even though we have this idea of platooning with Max Kepler. Philly has reached the point where they're pinch hitting Nick Castellanos for Max Kepler just so that they could hope Max Kepler gets a hit to blow out and start some sort of a run for him. I'm not sure we're going to get much out of Max Kepler the rest of the season, but Harrison Bader, you can. He's in the 70th percentile or higher in barrel rate, bat speed, outs above average arm strength, sprint speed, so he can steal some bases as well. And he's striking out more this year, but is hitting the ball better, which is exactly what Philly likes out of their hitters anyway. Like, it's okay to strike out if you're hitting the ball out of the ballpark. And he did not cost a top 10 Philly prospect. Are you on the same page with me that this is a great move for Philly?
I like it for Philly too. I agree that, I mean, you can never have enough guys that can defend well. He's fast. Certainly, he can hit lefties pretty well. I'm not just gonna defend Max Kepler because his name's also Max. I've always liked Max Kepler. He's walking a lot this year. He's not striking out that much, and he hits the ball pretty well. It just feels like every year, like Max Kepler his production, it never aligns with like the talent that he shows. Like maybe that's just like maybe he's just forever gonna be the type of player where the talent is greater than the production. But like I am pretty confident to say that he deserves better results. Like, I don't think the Phillies should abandon the thought that Max Kepler can be an impact hitter. Like, in 2023, that was one of his best seasons. He hit 24 home runs in 130 games, and he's always like been pretty like his career walk rate's 9.8%. His career he never has struck out much, and he hits the ball pretty well. I don't know why. I think maybe he's been unlucky because there's no way his on base percentage should be below 300. Like, I like Max Kepler.
That's completely fair, and we've seen time and again, like in the postseason, like the guys that have not hit the ball at all season long hit key home runs against relievers, and that's really the game. Or I said against relievers, but against good pitchers. That's just like the nature of the game. I mean, my favorite team had like one of the best teams of the modern history of the league, and Jackie Bradley Jr. was the one that won ALCS MVP. Like, I could see Max Kepler saving his best for the postseason just because, like you said, like the play discipline is there. The barrel rate is above league average. So I could see it. But at the same time, like Harrison Bader as the everyday guy in case Max Kepler just doesn't figure it out. Great move. Trade deadline perspective-wise, I like the move for Philly, and the Philly fans who are negative about this are just looking for a reason to be negative. Harrison Bader is definitely a good player, and he can slot in a lot of spots. So really like that move for Bader, and it's one of the reasons I think Philly is the most complete team in Major League Baseball. And maybe this will be clipped when later on they get eliminated in the first round. But I don't care. Like, I think the most complete team in Major League Baseball as of right now, given where we stand on injury reports and questionable timelines and stuff with the Dodgers, I think the Dodgers are not the most complete team in baseball. They are the favorites, and I understand why. But I think it is Philly for a playoff run. So I think the Philadelphia Phillies are the team to beat right now. And we can argue more about this when we put teams in tiers later on in the episode. But I think Philly has one of the best rotations in baseball for a playoff run. They have the power in a lineup that you want out of someone that can win the World Series. And they have just enough relief help that if they have enough arms to manage those high leverage innings in the postseason. Of course, the John Duran move can help with that. But that starting pitching seems pretty solid. And Jesus Luzardo is the big question mark there. Like, some people really don't like him. Some people really do. But I like a lefty that can have long innings out of the pen. And that's just like, I have a soft spot for lefties that have the skill set that he has. And if he comes out of the pen, that's fine. I like Philly overall as a roster from top to bottom better than the Dodgers. And maybe that's my hot take for the day.
I really like the Phillies too. Like they have a great offense. Their defense is actually like I was checking because I thought, oh, maybe I know Nick Castellanos is a dreadful defender, but their defense overall by outs above average is it's actually +3. So like they've really like the offense is great. Zach Wheeler, Christopher Sanchez, Jesus Luzardo, Ranger Suarez, like that's like an incredible rotation, and the bullpen's good now as well. Like I think the Phillies are definitely. I know the Dodgers are the favorites, but I feel like we're like the Dodgers are a little more risky because we don't really know how deep Otani, like what is Otani going to be able to do as a pitcher in the playoffs. Blake Snell's had some injuries. He's really good when he's healthy, but we don't. And then, I mean, like I think there's more a little bit there's more risk with the Dodgers, but I think they're both teams that no one wants to play in the playoffs.
Yeah. And then in the National League, like I said last week, the National League and the American League are kind of very interesting in different ways. In that, I think there are powerhouses in the National League, and they're just like good, but maybe not as scary teams in the American League that could just fight among, fight with each other. So when the American League wins the World Series, this is going to look really funny. But regardless, we're going to put teams in tiers overall soon. But I want to wrap up this segment with a couple of surprises from the trade deadline as well. I know there was a team that you were surprised did not add pitching wise. I think we all know who what's coming, but what's going on with that team in the NL Central that should be contending but maybe isn't?
Yeah, I think I predicted the Cubs to get Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly. They didn't
Surely
get.
they got a single starter
They
that
got
is good.
Michael Soroka, who's pretty good, but like I'm sure they did the health checkups and stuff, but like his fastball velocity, like the start, the few starts before they traded for him, like early on in the season, his fastball averaged like a little above 94, and then his final few starts, like at one start it dipped below 91, which that's a huge difference. And then he just pitched the other day and only lasted 2 innings, and his fastball was its speed average was the lowest it's been all year, and so they traded for a pitcher who actually like I don't maybe he's not wouldn't have been their best starter, but like the Cubs rotation, it's not good at all right now. And their offense is good, but like like you win a baseball game by scoring more runs than you allow, but the runs allowed piece, the offense can't influence that. So I think they probably wish that they had added another starter because I don't know that like any of their starters are guys that you really want pitching in a playoff game, right? And then it's not like the bullpen's good, and I know you don't think a good bullpen matters that much in the playoffs, but like really like the name of the game for pitching is just you want to prevent runs. So I don't like bullpen to me, it's just those are just more pitchers. If you want, you could put stars in the bullpen. Like you just want to get outs and not allow runs. So like I have like a team like I'm in like a keeper league where it's actually like a simulation based league, and the way I do it is like today I actually have to sweep this season. There's only 4 games left. It's a 162 game season. My team's won over 90 games, but my division's loaded. So in order to have a chance at making the playoffs, I have to sweep my cousin the final 4 games because he's 4 games ahead of me. And like today, I think I have. It's based on stats from last season, so I think I have DJ Hers. I think I'm gonna have him throw like 2 innings, and then it's basically maybe I'm following with like Reese Olson or something, but then it's gonna be like from the 5th inning on, I'm just gonna use Edwin Diaz. I'm gonna use Tanner Scott. Like I'm just trying to get out. So like I think a good bullpen like that can make up for a bad rotation. You're just trying to get outs.
I know a couple of Nationals fans who watch our podcast. DJ Hers mentioned you're welcome. Um, and yeah, the Cubs like rotate. Like the Cubs had a chance to at least somewhat make me fear them in a playoff run by at least trying their hand at Zach Allen. I know last week we were mentioning like the high ceiling guys versus the like safe guys who are potentially just decent, like a Merrill Kelly. The Cubs are just obsessed with guys who don't draw whiffs and who are somewhat around the strike zone because like Imanaga was supposed to be like the big thing in their rotation, and he is one of the most fly ball heavy pitchers in the league. He is one of the worst K rate pitchers in the league. Um, he does draw a lot of chases, but he's almost in the bottom quartile in whiff rate, and that's basically what he does. He pounds the zone, he draws some chases, and doesn't get Ks. And Michael Soroka, Colin Rea, like of course Michael Soroka is way better than Colin Rea, but like another guy who like doesn't draw whiffs. He gets some like called strikes, and that's how he gets his strikeouts, and he doesn't walk people. He somehow gets lucky often and doesn't allow a lot of home runs.
Colin Reyes, like, first of all, like you're talking about not getting strikeouts and then giving up fly balls, a lot of fly balls. That's a really bad combination.
Yeah.
Because if you're not getting strikeouts, like fly balls, like they have a chance to go over the fence. Like guys like Framber Valdez, who actually he now gets strikeouts, but you can be a successful pitcher if you're getting a ton of ground balls, and even if your strikeout rate's average, like what Framber Valdez usually does, or like someone even like Andre Payante, like he's not been good this year, but last year he was pretty good, and he gets a ton of ground balls. Like even Christopher Sanchez, like in previous seasons, like he's never this year his strikeout rate's good, but like if you get a lot of weak contact, even if it's not weak, if it's on the ground, you're gonna get out. So like, but like Colin Rea, like he's given up. He gives up like his career on average. He gives up like almost 1.5 home runs per 9 innings, and he doesn't strike guys out. So like, that's trouble. And his ERA, it should be worse than it is. It's 4.23, but like, I think he's one of the maybe not one of the worst pitchers in the league, but he like if he's starting a playoff game, the opposing lineup is going to be very excited.
I just know that I'm going to have Phillies exposure in the playoffs, and Colin Rea is going to come up to pitch an inning against the top of the Phillies order, and we're going to have so much fun betting home runs live. But anyway, I think it's only right we end. Speaking of ridiculous things that have no chance of being a threat in the playoffs, I've teased this in the thumbnail for my long form video that came out today, which you should go watch. It's 6 minutes long. It's worth the watch. How is AJ Preller still employed? Like, can we talk about this man's like approach to life in general? Like, I would hate to be like someone that like lives with him. Like, you will never know what you expect when you wake up. He could literally do anything, set the house on fire, and say, you know what? We're going to have some fun today. Don't let this man anywhere near a 4th of July grill, because this man traded most of the farm as if the last few seasons weren't enough, giving out horrible contracts to old starting pitchers. We've talked about this in previous episodes. This man traded nearly the entire farm, including the number 3 overall prospect in baseball, for a slew of major league guys, some of whom are very good. And granted, Mason Miller, like I'm an OG Mason Miller stan. Like I think this man is a superstar. And if he stays in a relief role, he has potential to be the best closer in baseball next year. Like, don't get me wrong. I like some of the players they traded for. But this man just traded for 7 major league players, or I believe 6 major league players on the roster, some of whom aren't even good fits on the roster, because he traded for Ramon Laureano and Ryan O'Hearn. And Ryan O'Hearn is literally Gavin Sheets, who is already on the roster. So this man traded the number 3 overall prospect in baseball for a reliever. He traded for Gavin Sheets when Gavin Sheets is already on the team. And then he traded for a few other guys who, I mean, granted are good, but you can go check out the full long form video if you want to see me talk about all the trades overall. And I just have If AJ Preller is employed by the end of the 2025 offseason, as in the beginning of the 2026 season, I will be very surprised because they're not going to win the World Series this year. And is that going to be the last straw for the Padres? Am I the only one who thinks that AJ Preller is doing an absolute horrible job over the last few years, or are you kind of in the same boat with me?
I think, I mean, I'd have to look more into the packages that he gave up for all these guys. I like trying to make the team better, but I mean, the goal is to like quote unquote win as many World Series as possible. So like you don't want to throw in all your chips to try to win this year because maybe it really hurts your chances of winning in future seasons. But maybe the reason he's still employed is maybe he's just a good listener. Maybe the owner is saying, I want you to trade our top prospect for one of the best relievers in baseball. Like, I don't know. It's hard to know if this is really what he wants to be doing. Maybe he's kind of like the puppet.
And I think like it's important to point out that like this is not the first instance of like a front office being overly, maybe perhaps overly aggressive with trading away their top prospects. I mean, I know a thing or two about my teams. Like as a Red Sox and Nationals fan, I know a thing or two about my teams going all in for players. And actually, we have a tweet from MLB Pipeline that I saw right after the trade deadline, which talks a little bit about this history, which is the highest ranked prospects ever traded. And of course, the one that stands out is the 2016 trade with Yoel Moncada going to the White Sox in the Chris Sale deal. Now, at the time, and people who've known me since then can attest to this, not new listeners, but I was lower on Yoel Moncada than consensus, even though he was the number one overall prospect in baseball. I loved that deal because I also have like Chris Sale was like one of my favorite players in baseball at the time, and the Red Sox had a clear need for an ace, and they were very close to contention. I loved that deal. And then on the other side, you have Lucas Giolito being involved in the trade for Adam Eaton, and I did not love that deal because I loved Lucas Giolito as a prospect, and I thought Adam Eaton was a good but not a superstar level player. Both of those teams that were the one that traded the prospect did end up eventually winning the World Series a few years later. One 2 years later, one 3 years later. But that is the only way you could possibly justify trading for a reliever. And you look at the other two trades that fall in this category of high ranked prospects traded. Number 3 prospect Will Myers was traded to Tampa Bay, and the Wade Davis and James Shields deal. That is a conversation for another time. And then now this trade with Leo DeVries getting traded to the Athletics in the Mason Miller deal. I thought the Athletics did great at the trade deadline, and it started with that trade. So the only route to the Padres possibly explaining the last couple of years is winning the World Series. I still think they're not a top 3 in the team in the National League, but that is what our next segment is for anyway, to discuss how we view the contenders in this league for 2025 and who are the frauds. But before that, I think it's time to play another game. And Max, I believe you have one prepared for me.
I do. So you're gonna blind rank 6 different teams. I'm not gonna tell you the theme, obviously.
All right.
So the first team is the Mets.
The Mets. We can go into more why in the next segment, but I'm gonna rank this based off 2025. Okay, since that
Yeah, so
has
you're right.
yeah
You're ranking it like how how good is this team
yeah.
basically this season?
So I'm only ranking this based off their present, since that is the theme of the podcast today. I'm going to rank them based off how I view them in 2025. I'm going to put the Mets number 3.
Okay. Next team is another team from New York, the Yankees.
I'm going to gladly, because I have no idea what the theme is yet, I'll gladly put them at 4 because I think they're worse than the Mets. But you might screw me over by putting a tanking team, so I'll put them at 4.
Okay. Next team, the Cubs.
The Cubs, now it's getting tricky because I regret some things. I will put them at 5.
Okay. Now an American League team, the Mariners.
The Mariners, I will. Okay, I now have picked on the theme. I may have made some mistakes. The Mariners, I will put them at 1.
The Padres,
I will put them at 2.
and now your favorite team, the Red Sox.
And it's only right that the Red Sox end up at 6. I believe the theme is teams that are in a that are competing for the playoffs or in a playoff spot, but not
Yeah.
winning the division
It's
right now.
all the wild card teams right
So
now.
it's all that makes sense. 6 wildcard teams, that makes sense. Um, I did not pick up on the theme until halfway through. Did not intend for the Red Sox to be at the bottom. If I were to re-rank, probably put I would probably put the Cubs number 6, just based off what we just talked about. And other than that, I don't have too many regrets. If you are a member of the Discord, you already know how I feel about the Mariners, and we'll talk more about it in a couple minutes. I think the Mariners are easily one of those teams that could absolutely still like fight for a playoff spot, and even they could even collapse and miss the playoffs. I think that is in their range of outcomes, but I also think winning the pennant is in their range of outcomes. But I think that's a good segue into just going right in to our final segment of today's podcast, which is we're gonna put teams in tiers, but we have a question from chat before that. Any thoughts on Cole Reagans? I haven't heard the name Cole Reagans in a bit, which is kind of weird since we're entering this season like Cole Reagans is going to be in Cy Young contention at some point soon. Max, do you have noteworthy thoughts on Cole Reagans?
He hasn't been on my mind in a while either. I know that he's really good when he's healthy, but obviously he's not right now. And if the Royals, who I don't know what the Royals are doing, but if they want any chance of sniffing the playoffs, they need him back soon because, like, I mean, he's by far their best starter. I mean, he's one of the best pitchers in baseball when he's available, but right now he's not. So
Yeah.
I don't know when he's due back, but I'll try to find that out because, I mean,
There's probably not much motivation for the Royals to bring Cole Reagans back anytime soon. Get
it
him
sounds
healthy
like
for next year.
he has some strain in his shoulder, and it's like they don't want him to get surgery, but like they're just resting him. I don't know what's going on, but his shoulder is hurting him, which that's not good.
Yeah. I know a thing or two about shoulder strains. I agree that shoulder pain is not good. Um, I think that's a good segue into our last segment, which is we're going to put every team in Major League Baseball in a tier based off their contention status in 2025. I think it's fine if we start with the bottom. So we're going to get out all the teams that are October relevant, as in they are either not going to make the playoffs, or I think there's a couple teams that still can technically sneak in, but they won't do anything in the playoffs. I'm still sweating a Cincinnati Reds under on wins. Their current Fangraphs projection is, I believe, 82, and I'm sweating an under 79.5. So it might get dicey there. The Reds, like the Red Sox, pulled off some wins that I wasn't expecting them to. Let's just get rid of all these teams. If you're watching post game, we're putting the Reds in the bottom tier, the Rockies in the bottom tier, the Twins in the bottom tier, the Athletics in the bottom tier. We're calling this tier October irrelevant. The Nationals are there. The White Sox, who have the same number of wins as the Yankees since June 1st, we're putting them in the bottom tier. Putting the D-backs, who have sold, or at least partially sold, in the bottom tier. 3 weeks ago, I was putting the Giants a couple of tiers higher, but we're putting them in the bottom tier.
If the Reds had a better offense, like maybe if they made the playoffs, like with Hunter Green and Chase Burns and Nick Lodolo, like maybe I think they'd have a chance of competing, but like their offense is dreadful. So I agree that they're probably not going to make the playoffs, and if they do, I don't think they're dangerous.
You know, an offense is bad when John Smoltz on national television has a good take about them, and is just like John Smoltz is the most like anti like whatever we do on this podcast. He's the most anti that kind of person and there is, and he will push for like being anti analytics. And he was just like, home runs, yeah, they're not everything, but you have to hit some. And the Reds just simply don't do that. Nick Lodolo also hurt. We hate to see that, which is
Do we know how long
I
he's gonna
I
be out?
I think the timeline is he's going to try to be back this year for sure, but
Mm.
I don't have a full update on that. But for now, we're putting them in the bottom tier. So Marlins, Giants, Royals, Angels, Braves, Cardinals, Pirates, Guardians, Orioles. We'll get them all out, and I think that wraps up the bottom tier. Oh, we're going to put the Rangers in there as well. Just because they look good against the Yankees doesn't mean they're good. All right, I'm done with the Yankees jokes for today. Fun fact, I got Max the same headset that I have, and his is not disconnected once.
Maybe it has to do with the wearer.
Potentially. This
Maybe
is
the
what we
headphones, they don't like you, maybe.
perhaps
Your
maybe the head.
takes are too powerful.
Yeah, my takes are way too powerful. Speaking of powerful takes, this is what we call working as a team. We're going to agree on something for each of these remaining teams, right? And it starts with the Yankees. I are we putting them in fraud or contender? What how it's going to work is you're going to make the call on this one, and if we have a strong disagreement, I make the call on the next one. It's like jump balls in basketball.
Okay. You know what I'm gonna say? I think the Yankees are a contender, and I mean they traded for a bunch of relievers. They feel they're contenders. If the Tigers are playing the Yankees in a series, I'm gonna be very nervous, and I would expect us maybe with the home field advantage that would cancel out the Yankees being better. But like, I think the Yankees are scary.
I'll say this: if the Yankees and Tigers play in a postseason series, and Tarek Skubal is healthy, and Kerry Carpenter is healthy, and Riley Green is healthy, then I will be willing to pay a lot of juice for the Tigers. But we can put them in contender for now, because technically, yes, they are contenders. I can live with that. I will still sleep tonight, despite putting them in the contender tier.
That's good.
Let's go the other way. Let's go with the Cubs. I think we can agree on this one. The Cubs are not a scary postseason team with this pitching. We talked about it extensively earlier. Their offense is really good. If they're going to win some playoff games, it's probably going to have to be 8-7. Um, but their floor is as low as a first round sweep. And I think if that happens, nobody who listens to the podcast should be surprised. The Mets are a team that we haven't talked much about today. And I think you can take the lead on this. What are your thoughts on the Mets? Do you think they did what you thought they would do at the trade deadline?
I mean, they traded for two good relievers, two very different relievers. One, Tyler Rogers, who he's the king of avoiding. He does not allow barrels at all and throws from a really, like, he throws from way low. And then Ryan Helsley, who we talked about, who throws hard and gets strikeouts. So they made their bullpen stronger, and they have a really good offense. The Mets rotation is not good at all. It's kind of like the Cubs. I don't know if we can call them frauds though, because they have a better bullpen and their offense might be better too. I think the Mets are contenders,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I agree with basically every point you made. They also traded for Gregory Soto, which
oh
is
yeah,
certainly a name, one of the names for sure. I think the Mets are definitely contenders. I think more so than the Yankees, despite the fact that they're in a better league. And just because like the Mets offense, like from top to bottom, there isn't an automatic out. And like I was very low on Mark Vientos coming into the season. We haven't seen the best out of Mark Vientos, and he could be saving that for a playoff run. Francisco Lindor got one of the biggest slumps of his career out of the way. He is back and hitting the ball better. So is Pete Alonso. Again, I don't know how fully we can wait, like how properly we can wait, like getting hot at the right time and postseason performance. But certainly Mark Vientos has that Max Kepler chip on his shoulder, so to speak, which is like he's gonna be on the postseason roster, and he better be saving his best for the postseason, because he has been a huge disappointment for the Mets this year. Someone that I was low on, but many people were relying on him. I think he's going to be key for this postseason run. I also think this rotation is maybe slightly better than you're giving it credit for. And also, like, Cedric Mullins is a really nice addition, because if you're going to give up some, granted, some soft contact, if you give up hard contact and you don't get whiffs, like the Cubs rotation, you're not going to have much of a shot. But the Mets have, I think, a significantly better rotation than the Cubs. And if you're going to need defensive plays to be made around you if you don't have aces like the Phillies, and Cedric Mullins is going to be super important for that. The Mets rotation going into the postseason, Kodai Senga, Sean Manaea, David Peterson, Clay Holmes. And Clay Holmes, like I would anticipate, like I'm surprised you didn't mention Clay Holmes because that's a pitcher you've liked in the past a lot. And I've had some doubts about like how he was going to transition to a full-time starter. But the whiffs have been off and on, but they've been there. Like he's not a Colin Rea. He's not bad at all.
Yeah,
He has
that's
some really
true.
good pitches.
I think he's like he's fine as a starter. He was a great reliever. I I think the Mets rotation's probably like average in my
Yeah.
opinion, but like I think David Peterson's way overperforming. But
Yeah.
I agree that it's better than the Cubs, but like I don't think they have like a clear like I don't know if they have any strong starting pitchers. Like the Yankees have Max Fried. Like I would argue Max Fried and Carlos Rodon are better than anyone in the Mets rotation. And then like if we look down low at like the Astros who are a contender, like they have Framber Valdez, Hunter Brown. Like the Mets don't have a starter that's of that caliber, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's completely fair. Which is why, like, potentially they're tier 2 contenders. They need they need their pitchers to get hot for sure. I think that's a good transition to the Houston Astros, who I think we both agree are contenders, despite the sweep at Fenway, which some of us on this podcast were extremely shocked by. But regardless, Hunter Brown and Framber Valdez, elite duo. And if they get anything, I mentioned on my long form video today, I was surprised that the Astros got basically no help on the rotation, but they did the next best thing, right? Which was fill up all the other, gaps that they had on their roster. They absolutely need one more hot starting pitcher headed into the postseason. Who that will be, nobody knows at the moment. But they did the next best thing with which is help their offense. Carlos Correa is the addition everyone's talking about. It is an upgrade. Ramon Urias is like the underrated upgrade that, he could do well in the Crawford boxes. He has some pull power. But can we just shout out the Astros front office for listening to the podcast? They traded for Jesus Sanchez, who was not even a lock to be traded this year. So shout out to them. He was my pick for second half breakout. And he's had some really good at-bats so far, but very small sample size. I think that's I think they're going to get hot and cold with this offense. If Yordan Alvarez comes back in time and plays like the Yordan Alvarez we know, and they get one starting pitcher outside of their top two to get hot in the postseason, I think a World Series is definitely in the range of possibilities. So I view them as a contender. I think it's time to name our next fraud, and another team that we've talked about multiple times on this podcast. It just so happens to be the team that has the best record in baseball. And that's what we like around here, right? Like, we don't look at the record and immediately just say they're a contender. I don't know what the Brewers, what magic the Brewers have cooking. But if you look at the roster, like you look at their offense, like, and you just blindly like try to guess how their offense has performed versus the names on their roster, it is confusing that the Brewers offense has been as good as they have. William Contreras, obviously good baseball player. Rhys Hoskins has been hurt, and when he wasn't hurt, he wasn't the most consistent hitter. Takes a lot of walks, hits the occasional home run, but not really much outside of that. Andrew Vaughn has been like the newfound like star for them. He's had one of the best starts to a Brewers career ever as a hitter. Is that sustainable? Unclear, but a change of scenery, maybe Andrew Vaughn is the real deal. But to me, it's like the bottom line is just like outside of Churio, Hoskins, Contreras, and Vaughn, where is the offensive ceiling here? And like, I could see the Brewers like go a full playoff series without scoring a run just because like they don't hit home runs. And Sal Frelick and Bryce Terang and Caleb Durbin hitting 4 singles a game is just not going to be the recipe in the playoffs. And so at that point, it comes down to like, can they really just win based with Freddie Peralta, Brandon Woodruff, Quinn Priester, and Jose Quintana as a rotation? I think in unison, our answer is no.
Yeah. I agree that the Brewers, it's very strange that they've had as much success as they have had, but I don't think they're bad, but I just don't think they're legitimate World Series contenders.
Yeah. Speaking of teams that can be really, really inconsistent, it's time to admit that there's a team that's going in the dark horse tier. It's time to admit that the Red Sox are there. Um, Plain and simple, like we talked about them at the top of the show, we talk about them basically every week. I went into the All-Star break thinking this bullpen is so beaten up. This rotation is quite frankly unreliable outside of Crochet. This is coming from someone who was high on Brian Bayo like a couple of years ago. Brian Bayo has lived up to everything I expected of him, despite the little injury stint in the middle. And can we give credit to Andrew Bailey, the pitching coach, for fixing Lucas Giolito? Like, I'm old enough to remember when I was saying in the Discord that Lucas Giolito was calling Ray bad, and I was wrong there. And you were quick to point out that he was definitely better than Colin Rea, and he's been awesome the last couple of months. And Andrew Bailey has figured out how to get the best out of him. Dustin May is going to be like potentially like the make or break to this rotation entering the postseason, because Dustin May, like the last time he had elite stuff was in 2022. If you look at his stuff plus metrics, his whip metrics since the injuries, they just have taken a huge dip every single season. But that's exactly the kind of player Lucas Giolito was entering this season. And Dustin May has not used his cutter at all. And we know the Red Sox love less fastball, less four-seam fastballs, more sweepers, more cutters. There's some reinvention that could be done with Dustin May. So I'm excited to see what Andrew Bailey has cooking up for him, because Walker Buehler is quite simply not the answer. We know this at this point. He tried changing a couple of mechanics things, but he still gives up a lot of hard contact, and he still can't go deep into games. Dustin May could be the X factor on how deep the Red Sox go in this playoff run. So, again, I talked more about the Red Sox in my long-form video today. I thought their deadline was very weird because they didn't sell off guys like Jarren Duran and stuff who had value on the trade market, and there's a surplus of outfielders, right? We can all agree that the Red Sox have a lot of good outfielders. I'm surprised they didn't go into sell mode and try to retool for 2026, and they only passively aggressively bought with Dustin May. That's going to be super important, but it's time to admit they have enough good players on this team. They're a dark horse. They can make a 2021-esque run to a pennant where they almost won the pennant. I think we agree there. The Tampa Bay Rays, this is a really tricky one, as they often are. The Rays are tricky to place every single year. Where are we placing the Rays, Max?
I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but I was thinking a dark horse just because I think their bullpen's one of the best, maybe the best in baseball. The offense is fine, and they have some starting pitching. I just think they're a lot better than their record reveals or would suggest.
I think their rotation is just outright better than some of the teams that we've already mentioned, right? Like the Cubs, for example, they have one of the worst rotations of anybody will put in the top three tiers. I think the Rays are a better rotation than them. I think they have a pretty comparable rotation to the Mets, if not slightly better or deeper. I like the Adrian Hauser acquisition as well. He's a ground ball guy he's one of those guys that the Rays can turn into someone pretty serviceable. The Rays always find a way of hanging around, and their offense, I like their offense better than the Brewers. So
I feel like the Rays actually, they probably are better than the Brewers.
Yeah. They outright might just be a better baseball team.
As long as they're I know Aranda got hurt. Yeah. I think the Rays actually, they might be better than the Brewers. I know that sounds crazy, but
hey, it's only crazy if it's not true. And you know what? We're right. It's like that meme. Don't boo me. I'm right. Don't boo us. We're right. Yeah, but axiomatically, they have to be in dark horse if they're going to be better than, the team that has the best record in baseball. Axiomatically, they're a dark horse, so I like that. Phillies, I'm not going to beat around the bush. To me, they're the best team in baseball, and not the Dodgers. And I'll put the Dodgers in the contender tier as well. Obviously, they're the consensus best team in baseball. Not much to talk about there. We're putting the Tigers in contender, and I know you think the Yankees are better, and but no, I mean the Tigers are to me the best roster in the American League. They may not win the pennant. It's not always the case that the best team wins the pennant, but to me they are a very complete team, especially with Kerry Carpenter healthy. I mentioned last week Casey Mize really needs to figure it out. It has not happened yet, and with Reese Olson out, I'm surprised the Tigers didn't get a starter with high upside. I know Charlie Morton really did well on Sunday Night Baseball against the Phillies. I still don't view him as a high upside arm. So I'm surprised they didn't get more aggressive there, which is why I think like you'll see a lot of the teams on our dark horse tier. You'll see a lot of those teams in the American League for that exact reason, because the American League is definitely wide open. And I'll use that as a segue to put the Mariners, who are my favorite dark horse right now in all of baseball. I'll put them there. If you are in the Discord, you saw my post about the Mariners. We have a flash boost. We had a flash boost on DraftKings Sportsbook to use on an MLB future last weekend. I used it on the Mariners to win the pennant because I certainly think they are a team with that ceiling. Now, we mentioned that Eugenio Suarez at the deadline is a kind of guy that teams could be really disappointed if they traded for him and he fell off. But the ceiling is obviously undeniable. Josh Naylor is a really good hitter. And we all know that the Mariners, they run around their pitching, right? And they have for the last few years. George Kirby has had a up and down season. He's had injuries. He came back. And I'm old enough to remember when George Kirby was arguably the greatest, control pitcher of our generation. Not arguably, he just outright was. He almost walked nobody. Now he's walking people, and it's been an up and down year for him. But recently he's been drawing whiffs and he's been kind of getting back to what he used to be very gradually. So there aren't many teams that you can say like they have 4 good pitchers in their starting rotation. And you can say that about the Mariners. And if you're like Max and you really value the bullpen, you should be even more excited about the Mariners because they have some really good relievers as well, such as Andres Munoz, and they hit home runs. And I always love a team that can hit home runs. Are we on the same page here?
Yeah, I mean, in my list, I might have put them under contender, but really, dark horses are kind of contenders. Like, yeah. I feel like for some of these teams, you kind of just like it doesn't really matter if you put them as a dark horse or a contender.
I'm just axiomatically putting them as a dark horse because they are not top 6 in odds to win the World Series right now.
That's fine.
So to most people, like if I went on the street and found like 100 avid baseball fans, most of them will probably not say the Mariners have a good shot of winning the World Series, but I am saying they do. So axiomatically, I'm putting them in dark horse. I think they're the best of the dark horse teams, and I think that brings us to our final dark horse team, and I think we're both going to agree on this. We have the Blue Jays in the dark horse tier, and it's about like all of the things we discussed so far. You want to talk more about the Blue Jays? Because I've yapped about the Blue Jays all day long today. I like them going into the playoffs.
Yeah, we both like them. I mean, the rotation's solid, and I like that they got Bieber. I mean, we don't know how he's going to be, but he used to be really good. I know that as a Tigers fan. And then the offense is amazing for the Blue Jays, and the bullpen's really good. So I think the Blue Jays are a great team. Maybe even you could argue they're a contender, but they're kind of like a dark horse because I don't know that all fans realize the Blue Jays are as good as they are. And then I like the Padres. I agree that they're not like a top team in the NL, but like they have a strong bullpen. I just looked it up. Michael King is coming back soon. So like Nick Pivetta, Michael King, and then who's their other starter they have one other good starter that I like. Dylan Cease. I really like Dylan Cease. So and
I was about to kick you off the call if you said JP Sears was a starter.
No, really he's terrible. And then their offense, it hasn't been great, but O'Hearn and Laureano are good additions. Like I think the Padres are a good team, so I don't know if we want to put them as contender or dark horse, but
I gave you the Yankees. I'm not giving you the Padres.
Frauds.
We agreed before we started this tier list. I give you one jump ball, I get the next possession. Fine. I'm putting the Padres in fraud. If you want to watch me yap exactly, more about this Padres roster, you can watch our long form video. is popping up on the screen if you're watching on YouTube right now. This team is good. This team is not beating the top dogs. I don't think they're beating the Mets in a series. I don't think they're beating the Dodgers, or I know for a fact they're not beating the Phillies or Dodgers in a series. This offense is good, but Luis Arias is just not the type of player you want at the top of a lineup. I'm going to go to my grave saying Luis Arias is not a well above average player, and you can argue with the wall on that one. The bottom of this lineup is like, I don't know why we're not talking about the fact that the bottom of the Padres lineup is just outright bad. Like, Jake Cronenworth can get hot and hit home runs. Freddie Fermin, shout out to him. He's won me a lot of bets, but this is not a great offensive player. It is depressing for me to say that Xander Bogaerts, who I have a fat head of him on my wall behind me. Like that this was my favorite player during the Red Sox's World Series run. It's sad to see that he has fallen off, again, due to a lot of the injuries, and he has lost his power completely, and he is nowhere near the hitter he used to be. Jackson Merrill's having a little bit of an offseason. I still like him, though. But like I said, like, they made a lot of moves at the trade deadline that do not actively help this roster as much as people think. And I actually don't like their starting rotation at all. Like, even if Michael King comes back, I wrote an article about the NL West when the season started. I wasn't a big fan of Michael King entering this season. We don't know what we're going to get out of him. Nick Pivetta has been the same pitcher every single year, which is the first half he's great, and the second half he loses velocity and command and starts giving up home runs. I do not trust him in a playoff start. Even if we get the Dylan Cease that Max likes, which is certainly possible, Dylan Cease definitely has that upside, he's going to need a lot more help. And I don't know if we can get that from Yu Darvish. I know for a fact you're not going to get that from JP Sears.
The one thing I was going to say is Randy Vasquez, he better not be pitching in a playoff game for them. Like, that dude is like, we make fun of like Colin Ray, but like Randy is so bad.
Shout out to Randy Vasquez. As someone who bets on home runs every day, you have my respect.
I think he almost has more walks than.
I'm sorry, Randy. I'm sorry we're laughing at you, Randy Vasquez. You're a major leaguer, and we're not. We're the bozos here.
He almost has more walks than strikeouts.
Laughing at a major league pitcher is crazy, but I don't have any regrets. That basically concludes our segment, which is contenders or frauds, and we'll put the tier list up on Twitter at some point, probably, and have people argue with me. I'm so ready for the Padres fans to send hate in my DMs, and if I get Yankees fans trying to flex, it's we're contenders. I'm sending them over to you because this is your fault.
Okay.
But regardless, that is going to pretty much wrap up this episode of The Deep Drive. Like I said, we are on every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on Twitch, and the episodes will also go live or go up on YouTube on Ball Institute YouTube channel Wednesday nights if you miss the streams. And other than that, join our Discord. The Discord is still currently free. It is in the description of this YouTube video, and it is in the title of our Twitch streams. It is still currently free. And for now, we'll see you on the next episode of The Deep Drive, where we're going to talk September baseball. Peace.